All right, I'm determined to get through this ridiculous meeting. It's just torture. But I'm determined to get through it because I want to know what they're saying. So let's get back to this absurd shit show meeting that it's just so useless. It's funny.
Here for this series of phenomenal presentations this morning.
The series. Oh, this is Thomas Kim now. He's the newbie. The series of phenomenal presentations. They were phenomenal, folks. Just,
My comment goes a while back, about 30 minutes ish, when Director Bauman's earlier comment made me think about this more, and I think we may or may not slow down planning, or because she mentioned something about planning, and I deferred to staff on that. And one thing that I was thinking was that what we know for certain at this time is that certain lines, like the 48, are continually being heavily utilized.
48.
I also think Tom mentioned
48. I used to drive that. I don't remember it being heavily utilized. I mean, you'd get people. It wasn't. I don't know what it's like nowadays, but you'd have like 20, 30 people at the most.
that any changes in shifting of resources would take place in phases. I support that as a reasonable next step, and I think that the direction of the resource shifting ought to be from the lines that are no longer being utilized as much to the lines that we know are strongly being utilized by folks continuing to ride despite the global pandemic. These are
the global scamdemic of elites shutting down the world so they could implement a totalitarian government over all of us based on the China model.
Our backbone writers, whether they participated in the Writers Club or not, let's support them. And based on my personal experience, they're often BIPOC and or folks in lower SES, and I suspect
looks like a high school kid, doesn't he? Look at he looks like he's in high school.
Even transit dependent who are needing to be out and about despite the pandemic. Perhaps the three proposed phases of our campaigns that we've seen earlier could consider these factors as we move forward with our new messaging and branding. And those were just wonderful 3 different phases. I love them. It is also my hope that we could do a robust research on those lines. Again, like the 48, that showed continued strong ridership through the pandemic. Specifically, the ridership disposition and the nature of their destinations.
Yeah, geez, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Come on, Thomas, go back to bed, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. You're brand new. You don't even know what's going on here. You just feel like you have to say something because you're on the board of puppets, and so you have to say something, right?
So that we can support them and provide them more and better services there and meet their needs.
I wonder if any of these people actually know how bad their transit system actually is, how dangerous it is, how sporadic it is, how traumatic it is. I wonder if any of them actually know this. I just got done with the calls. Friday calls weren't quite as traumatic as the Thursday calls. And I used to remember that Thursdays were always like the worst day for some reason. I remember that when I was driving. It was always like Thursday was always the worst day, worse than Friday. And I never did understand why that was. But I guess it's actually because a lot of people actually take Fridays off, is somebody was discussing it with me. But I mean, it's mayhem. I mean, there's so many things going on out there. So much trauma, so many canceled runs, so many no reliefs. And here you have these, you look at them and I disdain them. It's like you're parasites. You're not really part of the program. None of you.
And I believe this sentiment my sentiment is also in alignment with Director Way's comment shared earlier that we need to better consider our riders who are needing to continue to use their services, get to and from work and other services. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, Tom, JC, you've nailed it on the head a few times here, but just wanted to share my sentiments as well. Well, thank you again for the phenomenal presentation this morning.
Thank you again for the phenomenal. Please.
Thank you, Director Kim, Director Way, and then Director Gonzalez, and then Director Lewis.
I thought Director Gonzalez.
Thank you, President Simmons. You are also, by the way, doing a great job of keeping score of the hands and who to call up next. So thank you for the facilitation. I think just echoing back to what Director Gonzalez had said around, the Writers Club, the profile, maybe digging into a little bit more about, who are the folks that we have there that's participating. I want to echo that. I think we have such an impressive list of thousands of people who participate, but it would be great just to get a little bit more of a snapshot of where are they coming from? What's a little bit of that profile look like? And then I think this is sort of a comment and a question for JC as we're just sort of brainstorming here and providing some input to the board strategy session. My comment was around the comment that JC, you had.
You know what? Okay, now I just realized why I like this. This is like, remember, what was that show? It was like, they were like, what was the name of that show? There were all these celebrities and they were in a square. What was the name of that show? Oh God, I can't remember. They were all in a show. There was like this big square thing, and there was like three on each level. There were like 9 celebrities, and the show. What was the name of that show? See, what was that? Oh my God, I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about, though. It was a game show, and there were celebrities, and they were in boxes. And they were on top of each other. That's what this reminds me of. That's what this whole presentation reminds me of, is that show. And I don't remember the name of it for some reason. My mind is not quite so clear these days.
Had made about really doing more extensive market research, talking to the experts, maybe working more with consultation firms.
Oh,
I'm just curious right now as to how much of that comes from our agency internally, again, using existing staff resources, creation of positions for community outreach, and then how much of that work do you feel like we need to actually, do RFPs and go to consultation firms? And so that's my first question. And then I have a couple of following questions that's just sort of, again, relating to the type of expertise that we need to build in-house and the type of expertise that we need to go out in as an agency and get in order to get, again, the services and the products and sort of the strategic planning that we need to do as a board. So,
okay.
Okay,
it was called the Hollywood Squares. That's what it was called. Right. That's what this reminds me of, is the Hollywood Squares. Let's see. It's not on anymore, is it? It started in 1966. Hollywood Squares. Is it still on? No, it stopped in 2004. It was on for 14 seasons. 1966 to 2004. Isn't that something?
Answering that.
Yes, absolutely, Director Way. So we use research for a number of different things. And I will say this, so we have 2 people on staff, Ginger Shank and Madeline Steele, who you heard from earlier, who do a bulk of our research. And they may use an outside firm like DHM or what have you.
DHM,
But that a lot of the work that they do is setting us up for those research. So like our attitude and awareness survey that's going to be coming out, we will use an outside contractor, because for us to get the response rate that we need and that has the cross-section that we need, we need to utilize an outside firm because
Why?
they obviously have the staffing to do that.
You don't have the staffing to do that. You have all these people sitting around. You don't have the staffing to do it. It's just amazing to me how much pork they have over there, but they won't raise the salaries of the operators. They won't solve the driver shortage. It's all manufactured. It's all bullshit. We're living in the age of bullshit. You can't rely on any government at all. I hope you're not relying on government. If you work for government, be careful because they enslave you unless you're an elite.
If it's a small survey, something on Pulse Survey or something along those lines, we can do that internally and we can crank that out very quickly. So that's kind of some just like research on the.
It's just bullshitting. I'm going to say it again for the 1 millionth time. Restore your pre-pandemic service. Cut back the service as you evaluate what is being used and what is. See, they're going back. They completely deconstructed their transit system. Okay, and we're talking about the buses because the light rail is still running almost exactly like it was pre-pandemic. It's only the buses. It's always the lowest people that suffer. No matter what part of our society you look at, it's always the lowest people that have to pay the cost for these criminals that are running things. In the case of TRIMET, it's the bus riders who paid for the pandemic or the scamdemic. They immediately cut 20%, even though they hadn't lost any money yet. And they got all that money. They got a ton of money from the feds, which they did not put into service. So they scammed that like all the other transit districts did. They didn't restore the services for the people. They scammed the money. And we don't know where the money went because these are super secret organizations and they work for themselves. Their goal is to enrich themselves and their associates at the cost of the population. So the first thing they did was cut the service. And they hadn't had any reason to do that in the short term, but they did it anyway, and they all did it. So it was a federal mandate, let's say, the same kind of thing. It came from the top down. So they destroyed the society from the top down, and we're still in the process of destroying our society right now. People, I think it sounds like more people are starting to wake up to this. At least that's what I'm getting the sense of from my social media that I do every day. I spend hours online, not just doing calls, although that's part of it. I also am searching all over the Twitter and the internet for information that I want to know. And I'm on millions of email lists. So I see lots of things. And it sounds to me like there's some actual resistance finally growing. I know in this country, we have all governors that are resisting this fascist Biden. You take this shot or you're fired. The same people that have worked through this whole pandemic from the very beginning are now getting fired for not complying with totalitarianism. And they're being cheered on by the numbskulls who've bought all this propaganda hook, line, and sinker. And this is why our civilization is finished. It's finished. Okay? All these states have made a voter suppression as part of their program. This will be a Republican-run country by 2024. And if you think that's a good thing, well, I got news for you. It's going to be even worse than what it is now. Okay, it's bad now, but if you put Donald Trump back in there and see what happens. I can tell you one thing for sure. If you had Donald Trump still in there, people would not be complying with any of these orders. But since he's not in there, they're complying with it.
Whole. Now, when it comes to like Tom and looking at our service, doing origin and destination surveys.
See, this is just crap. What we're watching here is pure bureaucratic crap. It means nothing. Basically, they're reinventing their transit system when there was never a reason to do that in the first place. It's all manufactured destruction.
Like that. That's kind of a different piece of the research puzzle. And I know for the comprehensive service analysis, a lot of that will be done by an outside contractor who they are hiring. I think Sam made mention at the top of the strategy session that the procurement will be closing here very shortly on that. So I think for us, it's really looking at what we need.
And if you look at all the government entities, the city of Portland, state of Oregon, TRIMET, state of Massachusetts, MBTA, they are all rolling in dough, and none of them are doing the job for the citizens. There's not one of these government entities is actually helping actual people that need it. That's why there's people all over the streets. They can't figure it out. They don't want to figure it out. You know, it's just like this director that asked about why is there trash all over the place. She's so disconnected from reality, she has no idea why there's trash all over the place. Because she's doesn't see or not paying attention, apparently. You know, there's this bottom 20% of the American population, which is literally dying. And they get no news coverage. The only place you hear about it is on the TRIMET Twitter. You know, you can hear it in action. You can hear how they leave people who are disposed, just leave them right sitting there in the ditch. Here, sorry, we're not taking you. You don't live up to our standards of cleanliness, so you get to stay in the ditch. You can't ride our system. This is the kind of totalitarian brutalism that we're living with now, and everybody's accepting it. It's just so sad to watch every day the destruction of the country, you know, the people being destroyed so the elites can prosper.
Kind of research, what is it that we are,
see, what's he talking about?
Need to understand, and then utilizing
He's
the
just
various
babbling
nonsense
nonsense
in our toolkit to get
your
that.
toolkit. You don't know what you're talking about, JC. You're a babbling bobber.
It does. And again, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but I guess I'm also just trying to understand. I mean, I think we're essentially, you know, with these great presentations, really thinking far ahead.
Great presentations about garbage. Here, we have all this to present to you. It doesn't mean anything, but you bored of puppets, you can pretend that it's great because that's what you do. You're there as cheerleaders for the management, and we know who you are, and we know why you're there. You're there to cheerlead for the management and cover for them. It's a corrupt criminal organization on all levels.
What does the future of public transit look like?
It's shit.
Right? And so
it's shit because you have shit service. And you have no plans to make the service better. It's shit. And you're still building division. You're still building better red. You can't provide your bus service, but you're doing all this other shit. You're complete hypocrites and liars. And we're on to you. Okay? Some of us are on to you.
That's like huge. It's a huge topic. And I definitely want to bring in all of the in-house expertise, all of the national, you know, the experts, all the players to help really, you know, thoughtfully and
where my finger is. It's called Scenarios for the Future International Development of the Rockefeller Foundation. All right? Okay, let's take a look at what they're saying here.
Now, this is 2014, okay? 2014, listen to this.
This is something like a 50, 60-page document. I'd like you to go to page 18, if you can look at this up on the internet, but I'll read it off to you. It's called lockstep, lockstep. And this is a phrase that I used right after 2001 when I saw the entire system of the United States, including the population, were in lockstep. So the Congress went along, and yes, it was Osama bin Laden, and the people waved their flag and said, I hate, 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 and everything was in lockstep. Well, in 2010, they published this, Rockefeller Foundation, and here's what they're saying. They're saying that they call it a scenario. These are scenario narratives, and they speak about it in the past tense. So they put out this scenario, lockstep. A world of tighter, top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. Okay, I'll read a little bit of it. In 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years, nobody was anticipating a pandemic, finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain originating from wild geese, they use some scenario, but this is Ebola they're talking about. Even the most pandemic-prepared nations were...
Well, I'm not going to go and do this whole thing, but look this up. Investigative journalist Harry Vox filmed 2000. And if you listen to that, what you're going to hear is the scenario that's playing out in 2020 and 21. 6 years before any of this, it was already planned out. You're going to hear exactly what's going on. And so I hope people can wake up to what this is actually going on here.
I think for me, I'll just continue to say is using a racial equity lens. It's using.
They talk the racial equity. They talk all this nonsense. It means nothing. It's completely irrelevant. They're disconnected from realities. Why don't we just listen to Joe Biden talk? Let's listen to Joe Biden, okay? Because if you want to listen to fucking liars, let's see. Joe Biden. Let's see what he's got to say. Okay, let's listen to him.
I've just been briefed by my COVID-19 team on the progress we're making on our fight against the virus. Today, I want to provide a brief update on my plan.
Wait a minute. No.
I'm joined by the Executive Director of the Ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, Gene Soroka, and Mario Cordono. I apologize, Mario.
This is the leader. This is the leader of the free will. He talks nonsense, and so do they. They talk nonsense. It's like complete nonsense.
All of those things that are just so important, I think, to this work and this region moving forward. So, and maybe a potential request that I would have, if it's possible, is maybe before we officially sign off on, we're using, X consulting firm from New York or wherever, might be out of state.
Yeah, they got money everywhere. Just hire, spend $1 million here, $1 million there, to do something we already know the answer to. The answer is restore your service, you fucking nitwits. But you're not going to do that because you're part of this New World Order bullshit.
Might be great to bring some of those pieces back to the board so that we have a clear understanding of this is who we're partnering up with.
You don't have any power. The board is useless. They're useless. This is the first time they've seen this information just like I'm seeing it. They don't challenge the administration ever. They always compliment them for their great work. They're nothing but sock puppets.
This is who we're using, and yes, check. They have a strong equity analysis, or they have experience, doing focus groups.
What a bunch of baloney the equity analysis is. That's the biggest bunch of baloney I've ever heard. It has no effect on anything. Equity analysis. It's a government new age baloney.
Communities of color, or English is not a first language folks. I think for me, it would be reassuring to know that okay. These are the partners, that we're going to be really partnering up with to problem solve and figure out how we're going to do the ridership recovery and continue to.
See, it really bugs me, man. I really don't know if I can listen to any more of this hypocrisy. They're trying to come up with a bureaucratic ridership recovery when the way to recover ridership is to restore the service. The way to recover ridership is to restore the service. You fucking morons. I'm not listening to any more of this. I've had enough of this garbage. You people need to get a life. They say, you people need to get a life because you're so disconnected from reality. I don't even know why they bother having you. Why don't they just disband the board and just use TRIMET Public Relations Marketing Division to issue press releases to the public because you're completely useless. And I've had enough of this. I'm done. I'm not doing any more of this strategy session.